Hi everybody, today we're going to look at chapter 6 section 1 and it's called the law of sines. So until now we've been dealing mainly with right triangles, and in order to solve those triangles, in other words to find the lengths of all the sides and the lengths of any missing angles with right triangles, we would use what we call SOHCAHTOA. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse, cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, tangent's opposite over adjacent. Well, SOHCAHTOA, unfortunately, only works for right triangles. So what if we're looking at triangles that are not right triangles? First of all, those triangles are called oblique triangles. So that's just a nice little word that simply means it's not a right triangle, it's oblique. So we're going to be solving oblique triangles, which means we're going to find any missing sides or any missing angles. And one way to do that with some specific triangles, and we'll talk about that a little later, is the law of sines. And the law of sines says this: if we have triangle ABC, just any triangle ABC, it does not have to be a right triangle. So we're going to assume this is not a right triangle. First of all, remember when you're labeling a triangle that the side that's opposite angle A is little a, opposite angle B is little b, side opposite angle C is little c. And the law of sines says this, that the length of the side of A divided by the sine of angle A is equal to the length of side B divided by the sine of angle B, which is also equal to length of side C divided by the sine of angle C. That's a nice little relationship we have there between the lengths of the sides and the angles. So we can use this cool little law of sines to help us find any missing pieces to a triangle. So let's go ahead and look at an example. Suppose we have a triangle, and I'm just going to call it ABC. Oh, that's pretty bad. All right, so here's angle A, here's angle B, here's angle C. Suppose angle C is 102.3 degrees. Angle B is 28.7 degrees. Side B rather, is 27.4. So we're given three pieces of information about the triangle, and we're going to be asked to find the three missing pieces. So in this case, we know two of the angles and only one of the sides. So I'm going to label the side opposite angle A. I'm just going to go ahead and label that little a. The side opposite angle C is little c. All right, so we need to find angle A. I'll just put a little answer key over here. Side A and side C. We'll fill in these blanks. You will need your calculator for these, and the book rounds everything off to the nearest hundredth, so that's what we'll stick with. All right, first of all, in this triangle, hopefully you'll notice the easiest thing to find right off the bat is angle A, because what do all three angles of a triangle add up to? Exactly, 180 degrees. So to find angle A, we can just take 180 degrees minus, I missed my huge whiteboard, 180 minus 102.3 plus 28.7, and again, you're using your calculators with this. Don't do any extra work that you don't have to. So that's going to equal 49 degrees. So angle A was fairly simple, 49 degrees. But now to find side A and side C, we're going to have to use our new little formula here, the law of sines. First thing, we need what I like to call the anchor of our law of sines, and that is we're given enough information in this problem. We know one angle and its opposite side, and that angle and the opposite side that we know, that's going to be the anchor for our formula. So in this particular example, we know angle B and we know side B. So that's what we're going to use as our anchor. So according to our law of sines, side B, which is 27.4, divided by the sine of B, which is 28.7, equals. And now we could either find A first or C first. It doesn't matter. Since we know angle A, we can go ahead and find side A now. So it's going to be little a over the sine of 49 degrees. By the way, some books write the law of sines as the reciprocal of what we have here. In other words, the sine of the angle over little a equals sine of b over little b, sine of c over little c. It does not matter which way you set it up. Either put all the sides in the numerator and all the angles in the denominator, or you could do the reverse of that. All the angles with their sines in the numerator and all the sides in the denominator. But I'll stick to the way this book has the formula written. All right, so here's our nice little proportion that we've set up. So how do you solve proportions? You learned this in Algebra 2. You solve proportions by cross multiplying. So that's what I'm going to do. And it doesn't matter which way you multiply first. Since the variable's here, I'll do it first. So when we multiply this way, and I'm not going to put anything into the calculator until my very last step. I have the sine of 28.7 times a equals, and then when I cross multiply this way, I have 27.4 times the sine of 49. We'll separate that out here. Again, I'm not going to put it in my calculator until I've solved this equation for my variable. So to solve this equation for a, all I need to do is divide both sides by the sine of 28.7. It's just solving a proportion like you learned last year in Algebra 2. Now we are going to have to put stuff in our calculator. So in your calculator, do 27.4 times the sine of 49. And remember, your calculator may open a parentheses here at 49. You're going to have to close that before you do divided by, and then sine of 28.7. And when you do that, you should get that little a, let's see, is equal, where'd it go? 4306, I believe. 43.06. Now we can't use Pythagorean theorem here because this is not a right triangle. So now to find side C, we're going to have to do the law of sines again, but using angle C with side C. Again, I'm going to use angle B and side B as my anchor, since we're given both pieces of that information. You can now use side A with angle A if you want to, now that we know both of those, but I always like to use whatever's given. So we have 27.4 over the sine of 28.7. Now we're trying to find side C over the sine of its angle. So angle C is 102.3. Cross multiply. So when I cross multiply this way, I have the sine of 28.7 times C. Cross multiply this way, I have 27.4 times the sine of 102.3. Solve it for C before I put it in my calculator. So I'm going to divide both sides by the sine of 28.7. And so I get C equals 55.75 when we put that in our calculator. 55.75. And that's it. All right, so in this particular example, we were given two angles and only one side. So we had to find two sides and the remaining angles. So the other type of problem you're going to have, so we've got one more example, and notice these problems are rather lengthy because you're actually doing 3 problems in one, so you're not going to have but a few problems to do for homework. One more example though. So suppose we're given that angle A is 42 degrees, little a is 22, and little b is 12. And sometimes in the problems they'll say 22 inches and 12 inches. If they give units of measure, then your answer should also have units of measure. That's going to be very important next year for those of you that take calculus or AP calculus. If you're given units of measurement, then your answer has to contain those units of measurement. All right, so this time they didn't draw a diagram, they just gave us this information. We don't need the diagram, we just need the law of sines just to write it real quickly. A over the sine of A equals B over the sine of B, one of the easiest formulas to memorize. But since we're doing everything digitized, to Lee. You will not have to memorize this. You'll be able to use your notes on any quizzes or tests. All right, so now our anchor is going to be A, because we know angle A and side A. And this time we're given side B. So the information we're missing is angle B, angle C, and side C. You're always going to be given 3 pieces of information and asked for 3 pieces of information. So from the information we're given, our anchor is going to be this A. So I'm going to have 22 over the sine of 42 equals. And now we can't choose between B and C. We're going to have to use B because that's the only other information we're given. So we're going to have 12 and we're missing angle B. All right, so to solve this proportion, I'm going to cross multiply 22 times the sine of B equals 12 times the sine of 42, and that's just cross multiplying this way and then cross multiplying this way. Solve for our variable before I put it in my calculator. So I'm going to divide both sides by 22. So now I have the sine of B equals 12 times the sine of 42 all over 22. So now this is a little different than our last example. B is trapped within this sine function, so how do we undo a sine? Well, we take the sine inverse of both sides. I didn't leave myself much room here. Sine inverse of that. So when we do that, sine inverse of a sine cancel each other out, and we get angle B is equal to 21.41 degrees. Okay, just do sine inverse of 12 sine 42, and remember you're going to have to close the parentheses that your calculator may open there, divided by 22, and you should get 21.41 degrees for angle B. So now angle C, we can go back to our nice little shortcut. All 3 angles add up to 180, and we now know 2 of them. So angle C is going to be 180 minus angle A plus angle B. So angle C is going to be 116.59 degrees. Again, use your calculator. I'm not using Math Magic, I'm just using my calculator ahead of time. And so we're still missing side C. So we did have to find angle C before we could find side C. So now we can go back to the law of sines, and again I'm going to use A as my anchor for that formula. So I'm going to have 22 over the sine of 42 equals, side C is what we're looking for. We do know angle C is 116.59. Cross multiply 22, you're going to get really good at cross multiplying. 116, and your calculator's really doing all the work here, so it's not too bad. Cross multiply it this way, I have the sine of 42 times C. So to solve for C, I'm going to have to divide by the sine of 42, and then just throw all this into your calculator. Let it do all the work. 22 times the sine of 116.59. Remember to close parentheses there, divided by the sine of 42. And this was a side, it wasn't an angle, so we don't have to do the sine inverse. And you should get C that C equals 29.4 or 29.40. So those are the 2 type of problems you're going to see on your homework. And your homework is listed in our homework. And that's it for today. Y'all have a good day. Bye.